BMW M135 xDrive, 2025, Review. While BMW was hard at work updating its Common or Garden 1 Series models, the brand also revamped the Go Faster version. This is the replacement for the M135i xDrive, but it's no longer called that. Instead, BMW has dropped the I suffix, a letter now reserved for BMW's electric cars, and simply called the new model the M135 xDrive. That bit of housekeeping aside, the new model gets much the same tweaks as the other 1 Series models, with visual and technology upgrades taking the headlines. The basic recipe, though, is more or less unchanged, with the M135 xDrive here to take on the Audi S3. This is our first taste of the Hot 1 Series, and with the S3 having been updated recently, it's our first chance to see whether the BMW has been upgraded enough to beat its arch-rival. What does the new BMW M135 xDrive look like? Unsurprisingly, the new M135 takes most of its styling cues from the new 1 Series, including the new look nose. Whether that's an improvement depends on your taste, but we think it looks better in pictures than in person, and the wider, flatter nose looks a bit squashed. That said, at least BMW has resisted the urge to fit an enormous grille to this sportier model. Instead, it has made do with more aggressive bumpers, black exterior trim and 19-inch alloy wheels, behind which hide uprated brakes. But the M135 is really set apart at the rear, where BMW has given it a set of 490mm exhaust tips, underlining the car's sporting intent. In short, there's still an air of boy racer about it, but it isn't anything like as leery as some hot hatchbacks. A look inside the BMW M135 xDrive. Just like the lesser versions of the new 1 Series, the M135 comes with BMW's new minimalist dashboard design, which is almost completely devoid of buttons and focuses almost exclusively on the massive curved display infotainment system that stretches across much of the dash and combines the digital instrument cluster and touchscreen. And just like the lesser versions of the 1 Series, the M135 has some surprisingly cheap-feeling plastics on show, which is a bit of a concern in a car that costs almost €70,000. But the build quality, the way in which those materials are stuck together, is still competitive, and what little switchgear remains largely feels robust. We aren't sold on the fiddly air vent controls, but they're a minor irritation in the grand scheme of things. Anyway, the M135's cabin features some motorsport-inspired goodies, including sports seats wrapped in micro-suede material and a chunky steering wheel with a red straight-ahead marker on the rim. There are lightweight gear shift paddles taken from the BMW M3 competition, too, and our car came with some special M options, including the sports seats with illuminated M badging in the backrests. Fortunately, none of these additions have a negative impact on the space available in the M135, and those seats are surprisingly comfortable. In fact, for the time being, the M135 is the most practical 1 Series on the market in terms of boot space, with 380 liters of luggage capacity behind the rear seats. That's hardly exceptional for cars in this class. The Volkswagen Golf has roughly the same capacity, but it's an 80-liter improvement on the new 120, which is the only other model offered in Ireland at the moment. The BMW M135 strives onboard technology. For all the M135's performance accoutrements, the car still has the same bank of screens as the standard 1 Series, complete with BMW's latest operating system 9 infotainment technology. That means the screens are all sharp and neatly presented, with relatively logical menus and some customization options, allowing you to put information exactly where you want it. BMW has also fitted the systems with lots of clever features, most of which you're never likely to use. But at least the screens respond quickly, and that's a good thing when proper buttons are few and far between. Perhaps the most obvious symptom of that is the climate control system that's integrated into the touchscreen. Normally, we're dead against such systems, but the BMW's implementation of the tech isn't as bad as some. By always keeping the temperature controls on the screen, no matter which display or menu you're in, the ergonomics aren't as bad as they could be, but it still forces you to take your eyes off the road. Driving modes are also controlled via the touchscreen, which is a less helpful way of doing things. Admittedly, the drive mode menu is reached via a button on the center console, but when the road gets interesting and you want to access the sport mode quickly, it's far from ideal. And the screen doesn't revert to normal automatically, necessitating more time with your eyes in the cabin, rather than on the road. How fast is the BMW M135 xDrive? As with the outgoing M135i, the new M135 has a 2.0-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder petrol engine up front, driving all four wheels via a 7-speed automatic gearbox. The combination is enough to get the car from 0 to 100 km per hour in just under 5 seconds, and on to the obligatory, and yes, pointless in this part of the world, limited top speed of 250 km per hour. But for most buyers, those are just numbers, useful for a game of top trumps but not especially relevant on the road. It does, however, mean the M135 xDrive is quick, with the kind of acceleration that'll startle your passengers and make overtaking slow-moving traffic a piece of cake. It's fast enough not to be embarrassed on the German motorway network, either, although that's a niche requirement that's only of value to a handful of owners. The point is that performance is more than adequate, but most customers will probably be a bit disappointed by the soundtrack. BMW blames legislation for the lack of character in the 2.0-liter engine, but we suspect the issue lies more with the engine itself than the corridors of power. Whatever, it's a bit dull and droning at higher engine revolutions, without sounding especially meaty lower down, so BMW tries to compensate by playing engine notes through the sound system. To be clear, this doesn't mean random sounds are coming through the speakers, but the noise is being captured in the exhaust system and accentuated for the driver's oral enjoyment. The result, predictably, sounds a bit false. And it does nothing for the car's economy, although that's unlikely to worry owners too greatly. The car burns through around 8 liters of unleaded every 100 kilometers, and while that isn't bad for a 300 HP hatch, it won't win any environmental prizes anytime soon. Driving the BMW M135. As the flagship of the 1 Series range and BMW's sole hot hatchback, the M135 xDrive has more than just a powerful engine and an all-wheel drive system. BMW has also fitted adaptive suspension and the M135 sits 8 mm lower than the standard 1 Series, as well as getting sport steering and light alloy wheels. And that's on top of the upgrades already fitted to all 1 Series models, including new shock absorber technology and a stiffer body. The result is a car that's fractionally more agile and more stable than the standard 1 Series, with a little less lean in corners and a bit more sharpness when you come to turn into corners. And that's an improvement on what is already a remarkably enjoyable car to drive. The M135 xDrive, then, is even more engaging and dynamic, with responsive steering and great brakes, as well as a greater sense of balance and stability. But there's a catch, and that's the extra stiffness in the M135's suspension. The standard 1 Series clearly aims to strike a balance between handling and comfort, but the M135 is definitely more handling orientated. The result is a stiff ride even in the more conventional drive modes, and especially so in sport mode. In fairness, the initial compliance as you hit a bump isn't too bad, but the suspension rapidly runs out of pliability and leaves you feeling the effects of the bump all too soon. But though it may not be especially comfortable, it's very composed, and it never feels as though it has been caught on the hop by any undulations. It's just quite stiff, even on the relatively smooth asphalt of southern Germany, let alone the surfaces of Irish roads. How safe is the BMW M135 xDrive? The European Independent Crash Safety Organization, Euro NCAP, is yet to put the new 1 Series through its paces, but we're expecting BMW's new hatchback to fare well. The structure under the skin is identical to that of the old 1 Series, which managed a top 5-star rating, so there's no reason to think the new model won't follow suit. Especially as BMW says it has improved the driver assistance technology, which is increasingly important in the Euro NCAP rating. According to the manufacturer, the 1 Series tech is now much less intrusive, and our test suggests that's the case. The lane departure system, for example, feels more natural than it did, but the speed limit warning system, which is mandated by law, is still woefully inaccurate, so it can complain even when you're driving at a perfectly legal speed. Fortunately, it's easy to switch off. How many child seats can you fit in a BMW M135 xDrive? As with other versions of the 1 Series, the M135 xDrive comes with 3 ISOFIX child seat mounting points, one in the front passenger seat and one in each of the 2 outermost rear seats. While it might not matter to all buyers, part of the appeal of a hot hatchback is its practicality, and the inclusion of front passenger seat ISOFIX only adds to those credentials. How much does the BMW M135 xDrive cost? A fair bit, with an asking price of just under €70,000. That's a massive uplift on the 42,000 euros or so you need to buy a BMW 120, but you're getting a lot more for your money. Aside from the extra power, different suspension, and uprated brakes, the M135 comes with the sportier design features and the motorsport-inspired cabin. Black roof lining, sports seats and a red 12 o'clock marker on the steering wheel are all standard, along with the curved display, climate control, and navigation system. You get a reversing camera, too, and goodies such as heated front seats. But those that want to can go crazy with the options list, too. The signal green paintwork you see here is a costly extra, and you can spend more than 3,500 euros on the M Sport Pro pack, which includes special M Sport seats with illumination of the M badge in the backrest. It comes with other things, too, but that's one of the more left-field inclusions. The reasons you'd buy a BMW M135 xDrive. The recent improvements to the Audi S3 have given the M135 a mountain to climb, and though we won't really know whether its ascent is complete until we drive them back to back, the BMW is certainly still one of the best in the business and a worthy rival for the Audi. It has its flaws, of that there's no doubt, but it's still fast, furious and fun.